if you want to make something and you want an audience, go and do community theater. Do like a noise show in a college basement. I'm begging you. Do not make YouTube videos. I'm serious.
This week on Influence, we're putting some big ideas on some tiny screens. Friends and neighbors, welcome back to Influence with me, Matt Silverman, your guide on this information superhighway. I hope you've buckled your seatbelt when you travel on the information superhighway. Safety first, of course. And thank you for hanging out with me for another week where we talk about all things internet creativity, a lot of social movements, a lot of social activism recently on the feed, as you have probably been listening to. And this week we're getting back to the creator side of things. And we're probably going to go in a lot of different directions, but I do want to point out that the internet is used for lots of different stuff, all right? If you just want to get on there and have a little chuckle, a little LOL, as we like to call it, then we got you covered. And also, hey, what about my toilet's making a weird sound? That's not what it's supposed to do. Well, you hit up the old Googles, the old YouTubes, and you're finding out information. Tactical information to improve your life or learn a skill, something like that. And then there's a third bucket, besides pornography. Okay, we're going to set that aside for just a moment. A third bucket that we're going to call big brain. We're going to call it big ideas, big thinking. We're going to think about big topics. And that's not what the internet was for originally. It really wasn't set up for that. And then as creativity evolved, as platforms evolved, we started to see creators and creativity on the internet say like, hey man, what's up with people clapping? Who invented that shit? What is that all about? Hey, what if Pokémon takes place after like a global war? Let's break that down, okay? My guest today is a person who thinks about and produces a lot of stuff about a lot of these topics that when you listen, when you watch, when you subscribe, let's just say your thoughts will be provoked, all right? And he's been provoking my thoughts for 15 years now. A decade or more. It's disgusting. He's a video producer. He's a podcaster. He's a writer. He's a host. He's a sound designer, a damn good one, and an audio engineer who's been making us think big thoughts on the internet for 10,000 years. It is my pleasure to welcome Mike Rugnetta to Influence. Mike, hello, welcome.
What a warm welcome. Wow. Thanks, everybody. It's nice to be here.
We filmed before a live studio audience, as you probably have seen.
I'm so glad that everybody came out.
Maybe I'm going to dub this episode two old white guys talking about the internet.
We have the same haircut. We have the same beard. Our shirts are similar colors.
For audio listeners, it's just two guys looking in the mirror talking about stuff, and that's going to be a fun time.
We are in our, I'm going to assume some stuff here, 40s?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're millennials talking about the evolution of the internet is going to be a topic of the day here. So lots to discuss. But first, how are you? I know you're a little under the weather here.
Oh, it's been a banner week for my health. I'm just getting over COVID. I went to.
It was COVID. Okay.
It was COVID. Yeah, I took the test and then stayed inside for a while and wore a mask in the house.
Yep.
Got COVID at a show, which I should have known better.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the show and I remember thinking, wow, everybody at this show is very rude, and I should have extrapolated out to someone here is ill and came to the show and shouldn't have.
And by show, this is a concert, this is a comedy thing, or Broadway?
Yeah, concert music.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm used to going to like metal shows, which is like a basement of 12 people, all of whom are like the nicest person you've ever met.
Okay.
They're all like kind, very caring people. And this was like a massive techno show.
Okay.
Which is, I should have known. I should have put it together.
I mean, yeah.
And then I was completely laid out yesterday by a migraine. So
cool.
I'm here. I'm ready. I'm a man-shaped blob. I am an open wound to the world, ready to answer your questions.
We could have bumped this, but Mike rallied. Listeners of my other show might know I was vacuuming the other day, yesterday, 2 days ago, and kind of bent over to get under the table, and then found myself in excruciating back pain, which
oh no!
While standing, good. While sitting, fine.
Bad.
But transitioning between the two. So again, just two elderly white guys talking about the internet here today, and get ready. First question I ask a lot of creators is when you meet and talk to not internet people, not extremely online people, and they say, "What do you do for a living? How do you talk about it?" And your answer is going to be complicated, I know, but how do you explain yourself?
It depends. I think I don't have a go-to answer. I think a lot about. I think it's a Mission Impossible movie where Tom Cruise in his secret identity or whatever, where he's not Ethan Hunt. People ask him what he does, and he says, like, "Oh, I study traffic. Like, I study traffic flow." Okay. And the reason he says that is because he doesn't want anybody to ask him any questions about his job.
Oh, so he gives a super boring answer.
Super boring. Like, no one's going to ask. You know, if you're like, "Oh, I'm an insurance adjuster," you know, like, no one's going to ask. And so, if I don't really want to answer any questions, I just say I make podcasts for tech companies.
Okay, yeah.
Which is not true necessarily, but it's also not false. It's like the most narrow description of what I do.
Right.
If I do want to talk about it, or if I'm okay with answering questions, I will say that I'm a digital producer, which people will then say, "What's that?" And then I describe it. And if it's like more online than not online people, which I guess is now transgressing the premise of the question.
Sure, but let's go there.
I will just say I make internet stuff. Like I make stuff for and on the internet. And then people will say like, "Oh, so are you like a content creator?" And like the answer to that is like, not really, but also sort of.
Yes. Or do people say like, "Are you an influencer?" Or "Are you a YouTuber?" Or "Are you on Instagram?" Is that where people go?
I have not been accused of being an influencer for quite a while, which I think is good. That's a place that I want to inhabit. At one point, it would have been accurate to describe me as a YouTuber, and that stings a little bit, but it is no longer the case. It is no longer, I think, in any way accurate to describe me as a YouTuber.
Right? No, not these days. But we'll talk about that.
Lapsed,
a lapsed YouTuber. So just let's dig into your deep background. You know, childhood, education, etc. You know, short version, but like. What were you interested in as a teenager, and then we're roughly the same age, I think. So like, when do you first get online as a kid, as a teen? What was your first time you're touching the internet?
Probably like 1993, 1994.
That's pretty early, yeah.
Yeah, I would have been 10, 11.
Yep.
And you know, we would have had AOL. In the house. I think the first time I really went online was at my cousin's house, he lived down the street. Shout out to Chris if he happens to listen to this. And he had CompuServe or whatever, Prodigy. I forget which one it was.
Prodigy was my first touch point.
Yeah.
And don't spread this around, but I can tell you my Prodigy ID, my login ID, which was...
You're going to dox yourself on your own show?
I'm doxing here. Get ready, everyone. It was RTK X64B. This was assigned to you as a Prodigy user on MS-DOS because there were no screen names, and it was B at the end because my mom's account was RTK X64A, the primary account, and I had the second sub account.
Wow, that's just lodged in there, huh? That's just stuck.
I don't know anyone's phone number. I can't remember anyone's birthday, but my Prodigy ID will forever remain. And I remember being angry that people with Windows computers could do AOL and they could move windows around and chat, but Prodigy was very ancient. So CompuServe.
Yeah, I remember looking, being at my uncle's house and being at my cousin's house and being like, wow, this looks old. Then having AOL at home. Yeah.
So you got AOL at home.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and as a kid and then, up through adolescence and being a teenager, I was really into writing and reading and science fiction and really into music. And those are things that I'm still really into. And so my early use of the internet was really focused around those things, around science fiction, around text-based adventure games. I played a lot of those online, around communities that were interested in those things, discovering new music, reading a lot of stuff, finding things to read. I was, I got online at the start of the Eternal September, as it's called.
Oh, what's that?
I think it was 1993, which might have been the year that I got online, was this idea that so up until that point, every year there would be a new cohort of people that came online because they were going to college in September, where they suddenly had an internet connection. Because when internet connections weren't ubiquitous, right, you would get them most readily at an institution of higher learning.
Interesting, yeah.
There was a point at which the internet and connection to it became so ubiquitous that September never ended. A bunch of people got online who had never had access before, and they never left.
And they stayed. Yep.
And then that group just kept going and going and going. So September 1993 was the Eternal September.
Great. I love this.
And so that would have been right when I got online. That's... I was just in that early cohort of people who was going online, looking for bands and looking for whatever.
Yeah. And we were lucky enough to have computers in the home, which was not the norm at that time. But were your parents interested in tech? How did you get that in the household?
Yeah. My parents are not necessarily technically minded people. They're just I don't know, they're just not interested, or, it's not one of their priorities, but there was always a computer in the house for as long as I can remember. There was always a computer in the house. And I think I haven't asked them this, and I should, but I think it was for me. Even as a young kid, I think my parents recognized, they were like, well, this is probably important. So we should make sure that we have one of these around. And it worked.
A huge investment in the 80s or 90s,
I actually recently went back and looked, because I remember one of the older computers that we had in the house. And I was like, I wonder how much that was when they bought it. And it was $5,000.
Wait, in today's dollars or in those dollars?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I did not check to see.
Because $5,000 in 93 would be insane.
It must have been in today's dollars.
Okay. Whew. Still a lot, but wow.
That's a good question, though. I should find out. Did my parents spend $15,000 on a computer?
On a computer, what? Okay, was it a window? Did it have a graphical interface? Windows?
It was an old Tandy.
A Tandy. So this
I remember going to Radio Shack.
We went to Radio Shack. Command prompt. So how were you?
It was like a blue screen.
How were you? Maybe my memory is foggy on it, but was AOL on DOS?
I don't remember that computer ever connecting to the internet.
Okay, so then so you were saying there must be a subsequent computer that got you online. Is that right?
Yeah, there was that old Tandy. There was an Apple II.
Apple II, yeah.
Or IIe. I forget. I'm bad at remembering the old the old model numbers. There was an Apple, and then there was a Windows machine.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Sony, if I remember correctly.
So it's not just $5,000; it's whatever the other two computer. It's a big investment.
Yeah, but that's my job.
Right.
My job is computer. I've been using it for as long as I can remember.
Hey, what do you do for a living? Computer.
So for better and worse.
This gets me to my next question. So you're going through high school and college, and being a content creator on the internet is not a thing back then. So what do you go to school to? What do you think you want to do for a living at this time?
So I ended up going to a really small art school in Vermont called Bennington. And I went there knowing that I wanted to do something with sound and theater.
Okay.
And that I wanted to maintain an interest in reading and writing, though I knew that I didn't want to be a writer. And so I didn't really know what I would consider the end goal. I didn't know at the end of college, I want to be this. I just knew that I wanted to make stuff.
Right.
And so what I ended up doing at school was studying sound design and music composition, working a lot in the theater department, and then also focusing on computers. Bennington technically didn't have a computer science concentration. I think they called it computing. Yeah, which is funny. Managed to still take like a couple credits of English every term. I could have graduated early because I took so many credits, but I didn't. I had a really great time. Where I went to school really encouraged collaborating with other people, which I knew was a priority of mine even in high school. I just loved working with people, making things together. And so it could not have been a better experience in that regard. And Bennington also really encouraged applying skills from one area to another. So what did you learn in your sound design class? Apply that to computer science. What did you learn in computer science? Apply that to theater. What did you learn in English? Apply that to computer science.
Yep.
Back and forth.
Which is everything about internet creativity. Like when this all started to take shape, it's like, well, I got to be the editor and the host and the business development person and what. So yes, this is preparing you.
I got a liberal arts education, like capital L, capital A arts, like my bachelor. I have a bachelor of arts. Right. It's in the broader discourse, especially politically, right? There's a lot of bagging on the liberal arts.
Right.
And I think it is all entirely unfounded. It is all complete and absolute bullshit. And that it is an extremely valuable skill set that is just endlessly useful in the world because it basically teaches you how to learn, which is a massively important skill, especially now where the information environment is so let's understate it and say that it's complicated.
And in a world where when the world changes to be unrecognizable every 6 years in terms of culture and information literacy, training yourself for one single skill is wild. It's crazy. It's almost crazy, Adaptability is the key to the future, not specialization, perhaps, unless you're a brain surgeon or whatever.
I think there's always a place for specialization. There's also a place for realizing when you don't know something, understanding why you don't know it, and learning how to know it.
Yeah,
which is I think it's a skill, and it's a skill that a lot of people, especially very powerful people, think they have, and they don't because they've never actually put it to the test.
So I want to jump ahead to the internet stuff, but I think a lot of listeners probably know you from PBS Idea Channel, which is, I don't know if that was your first foray into, professional content creation, but, briefly, the leap from, liberal arts and theater and sound design, and then I assume you're looking for some sort of job in that field, but then suddenly, or maybe gradually, you become the face of this YouTube channel that becomes very prominent and popular and important to internet culture. So, I don't know, walk us through that period.
Yeah, I can give you the Reader's Digest version.
Please do.
It's pretty easy. So I left school and moved to New York, where I still am today.
Oh, I don't know where you're from originally.
I'm from Boston.
Okay.
Yeah. And got a job in theater. had some day jobs along the way. I fixed computers for a little while. I ran the educational department at an arts facility in Brooklyn for a little while. So like programming courses, hiring teachers, stuff like that. But like underneath all of that, and then when I stopped those jobs, worked in theater, writing music, doing AV systems design for artists. So someone would have an idea for a piece of art that they would want to make involving technology, but they wouldn't necessarily know how to make it. I was someone that they could hire to do that. And making performance art of my own on the side.
Okay.
Which, there was a certain period in like New York downtown art where like me and my friends were performing in shows that were getting some level of notice for a couple years. And one of those shows was about the internet and about internet memes and meme culture. And this would have been in like 2007.
What's the name of the show?
It was called Meme Factory.
Okay.
And that got us jobs at Know Your Meme.
Okay. So Know Your Meme was first. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Know Your Meme was first.
All right.
So that would have got me a job there as a writer, a host, and a producer. Did that for a couple years. And then a combination of the work at Know Your Meme and the work in our performance art world got me some contacts with the folks at PBS, PBS Digital Studios. And they, Idea Channel was their idea. They were like, hey, do you want to like make a show? Like do you want to make like a arts and culture show? And Idea Channel was originally going to be a sound show.
Okay.
Like about audio.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And we piloted one episode and everybody was like, this is good, but like, why restrict ourselves to like music and sound and audio?
But it was going to be a YouTube project, but it would be, so it would be a host talking about audio, but then of course you're realizing like, but it's YouTube, it's video, right?
And like, they had seen the other work that we had done where like I had talked about a lot of different things. The performance art that I was doing was about media and culture and, sort of gesturally using philosophy to talk about these things as a kind of rhetorical performance, using academia and scholarly writing as a kind of raw material for the performance of ideas.
Right.
And they were like, why limit ourselves to, we know that you studied music, but like, why limit yourself to that? Would you be comfortable talking about kind of anything? Right. And I was like, yeah, sure. As long as it's okay that like I can ask more questions than have answers. That's the show.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have two thoughts there. One is my perception, my understanding of it in those days, because as you're doing this, that's when I'm actually getting into media as well, starting professionally. And my perception was that like PBS has a mission to be like, we are here to make educational and informative content. And traditionally that's been TV, but hey, look at this YouTube thing. Younger people are moving to YouTube. So we need to put some budget there to reach those people. Was that the mandate? Like what was PBS's goal with this channel?
I'm going to be honest with you. I do not know.
Okay.
I can tell you that for the majority of its existence, Idea Channel was grant funded. I do not know the name of that grant. I do not know who paid for it. That was on purpose. I was never in possession of any of that information. I do know that it was part of their mission. Yeah, that like they provide arts and culture related programming where people are seeking out that programming. Yeah, that's what I know. That's all I know.
Yep. And then this marriage of philosophical discussion with media culture of like, let's apply, Nietzsche to Pokémon. I mean, those combinations became like core to the backbone of this type of content at YouTube. So do you perceive that this channel was among the first? Were you watching other channels that were doing similar work at this time, 2007, 2008-ish?
No.
Yeah.
When we started making Idea Channel, like you're talking about like the video essay, right?
The video essay, which we now know as the video essay. But back then, it was like, wait a minute. We have cat videos and we have video games. And then who's this guy? What is this?
Yeah, when we started, no one was like, "Oh, we're going to make a video essay show."
Yeah.
I even remember like one of our editors at one point was like, "Oh, this is like an essay on video." Like we weren't even thinking about video essay as a format.
Right.
The show was really inspired by a bunch of stuff. Ray William Johnson, the Green Brothers, Hannah Hart, Grace Helbig, Mamrie, Zay Frank. We were pulling a lot from Jon Stewart and John Oliver.
This is the class of YouTubers that were coming up at this time. And so many of these people feel like vloggers to me, and in a good way, like they were innovating that format. And then the video essay stuff felt different than that content. Would you agree?
At the time, we thought we were making a vlog show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay.
That was how we talked to it. It was like, oh, we're going to use the vlog format to like make, cultural criticism.
Yeah.
That was what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what was your process? Was it highly scripted? Was it a bunch of bullet points and then you were riffing and editing later? How did you think about the work?
Oh, yeah, extremely scripted.
Okay.
To the word. I read off a teleprompter for I think every single episode.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was written ahead of time, and would go into a studio, would read off the teleprompter, and then it would go to, I worked with a production company, so it would go to an editor. They would spend a week or so editing it. And then, we would do rounds of notes and then it would get published.
Yeah.
And then I would come in, we would record, the show did comment responses. So for anybody who hasn't seen the show, it's all, each episode was focused around one big question that we would attempt to provide one or two answers to during the show. So it was like, God, they're like all so dated now. It feels like why is Overwatch so popular and why does it inspire so much sexy fan art? Right. Was one of them. Why are zombies so popular at the moment? And it was at the moment. Yeah, it was at a sort of cultural moment where zombification was significant.
Totally.
And so we would propose one or two answers to this question, sort of couched and inspired by philosophy or theory. And then we would put it to the audience and say, like, what do you think? Like, let us know why you think this is the case. And then in the next week, at the end of the next episode, we would respond to people's comments. And so, every shoot day was me responding to comments and then shooting a new script.
Right.
And we did that every week.
I miss the culture of comment response videos. I'm sure they still exist, but it was such a dialogue at this time. It was the community, right? These days we have the community on Reddit and we have communities on Discord and social media, but back then it felt like the YouTube comments were the community and the host was in dialogue with the comments. And it's really special.
We got so many comments at the time, just in person, like at a VidCon or whatever. It was like, yours is the only good comment section.
Yeah. And,
the reputation there was that like YouTube comments were an absolute cesspit, just a horrible place to be. And, we knew that going in and we were like, well, let's see what happens. I think we did our best and some of them turned out pretty good.
If you start a good dialogue with great content, you're going to get good comments. And if you just put up shitty bullshit, like you're going to get dumbasses. Like it's not, we learned as we went that's not rocket science, So you publish it and it starts to take off. What do you, is this your dream fulfilled? As like, hey, okay, this is where I belong. I've aspired to do this educationally, and I'm creating, and I'm talking about big ideas that interest me. Is this working for you?
It was working. It was good. It is not something I ever intended to do, ever in a million years. If you had asked me 6 months before it had started happening, if I wanted to be or ever expected to be someone who made YouTube videos professionally, I would have said, are you insane? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I I think really what it was it was fulfilling in that it was a way to make things, which is really like it's the number one drive that I have is just making stuff and making stuff with a group of people.
Yeah.
And what was really fun about Idea Channel is that the focus was not on me. I didn't even say my name in, like, if you go back, I think we made like 20 or 25 episodes before I was like, oh, hi, my name is Mike Rugnetta.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, like I never ever talk about me or my name or like whatever for years of the show. And that I'm making something not just with the group of people who I work with in the room, but making something with our audience. It is this massive collaborative effort around building knowledge and understanding about pop culture.
Yeah.
And so that was really the thing that was really fun and was really kind of the fuel for continuing to make the show for as long as we did.
Right. And it ran for 8 years?
5.
Only 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is still a very long time.
2012 to 2017.
Yep. And I imagine you received many comments and messages, but like, what do you remember specific audience reactions that really stuck with you, that made a significant impact on your life or your work, and maybe positive or negative?
Yeah. There's no like natural way for me to answer this, I don't think. In that anything that I say is gonna sound like the answer that you should give, but like they're all true.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a couple different answers to this. The first is like yes, all of them. Like,
sure.
Every single thing that anybody has said about the show to me, like to my face, or like in a tweet online, or like in an email. Like I still get emails from people who were fans of the show. Is so just hugely impactful. Like I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I'm going to try to not cry on your show.
No, I get it. Please do.
Because the world is full of so much stuff.
Yeah.
There are so many things that demand your time. And there are so many things that demand your time that are so instantly and immediately and massively gratifying, that choosing to spend any amount of time with a show that asks you to think and does not much of the thinking for you, and in fact, like encourages you to do more for yourself than it does, is just, it's amazing that anybody does it.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to me that anybody watched that show, and that people liked it. And so, yeah, like, even if someone was like, I watched this whole episode and you're a fucking moron and I hate you and like, you know, you're a loser. I'm like, but you watched 12 minutes of, like, yes. Like, that, you know what I mean?
It reminds me of negative Steam reviews. That's like, I've played 450 hours of this game and it sucks.
Yeah. Like, hell yes. Like, good for you. Then there's like there's a very specific interaction that I had in the city where I was getting onto a subway car and someone was getting off, and they were like, Mike, and I was like, oh shit, here we go. And they were, you know, like, it's like the doors are closing and they're like, I forget exactly what they said. So if for whatever reason they are managing to hear this right now,
they are.
I apologize for paraphrasing you, probably like completely apocryphally.
Okay.
But in my mind, what they said now, you know, 10 years later, was, Mike, I love your show. You convinced me to switch from economics to philosophy. Whoa. And then the doors close. And that is like a weight to carry. Because it's like, I don't think I did, is how I'm at least rationalizing it for myself. That like I was one of many things that pushed this person towards making a decision that they were considering making. But also, if there is any change in someone's life that I can be extremely, if you were to ask me to invent, not having met this person at all, having never had this interaction, if you could imagine your ideal sort of like you had an impact on something, they changed something big in their life, what would that change be? I would say it would be great if I could convince someone to no longer be an economist.
Yeah. we need more philosophers and perhaps less
fewer
economists.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you could, as a human being, you could have done nothing or you could have done less, but you did the work, you or anyone, to affect other people positively. And this can be as simple, like we think about this all the time of like, you're walking around and you see someone and you're like, oh, hey, that shirt looks great on you. You're looking great today. That can change someone's perception of themselves and their day and make them happier and more confident, which that can then lead them to a conversation where their life could change. And it's all like silly butterfly effect stuff, but like it's nice to feel good about having that impact on people. So I guess what I'm saying is you should feel proud, and it is a great thing.
I think it's also like I said, the thing that was nice about this show, and something that I try to repeat in one way or another for everything I make, is that it's like really try to de-emphasize me. Like it's about the audience, it's about the characters, it's not about me. And for people to write me and say that like I'm really going to stumble through this because this is like a fundamentally uncomfortable thing for me to confront. Like people will write in and they will say like, you really helped, you helped me understand stuff. Like you helped expand my view or whatever. And it's like, I want to write back and I want to be like, no, you did. I made some fun things with my friends. And like, these were the things that I was thinking about that week. And like, that's what that was,
right?
And still is for all the things that I make. Anything that changes is because you are willing to change and to think about things, and that is hard. It's very, very hard to do, and like you should be just so proud of yourself for that. And like, but you can't say that to people.
You can, and I'm sure you have. Let's talk about, you're getting at something that I find really interesting, which is like this type of content is so hard to access in a world where everything is, look at this TikTok, look at this thing, dopamine, whatever. But despite all odds, these types of channels, video essay channels, deep philosophical dives, cultural critiques, have exploded over the last 10 years. And they are some of the most popular YouTube channels and podcasts on the internet. So like, clearly the culture want this stuff. And I guess, but it's so hard to make and it feels hard to access. So like, I don't know, I'm balancing two ideas there of like, you don't think the world wants and needs this, but if you make it and it's great, people love it. Some people love it. I don't know what my question is, but like, you know what I mean? Like, what do we do with that right now?
I think that the overall audience for this kind of thing is probably small.
Right.
I'm not in the what at the time YouTube called edutainment space.
Okay.
Yeah. Anymore. So like I can't really speak to like how audiences are growing and like what the prospects are looking like.
It's a lot of people who make up a ultimately very small subset of the general population.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that it's only ever increasingly difficult, and at this point, from my estimation, nearly impossible.
Yes.
To make a living doing this.
Yes. Yeah.
To make a living doing like your own independent educational content.
Long form, highly researched, well produced, thoughtful, factual.
I think it's
content.
It's very, 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 very hard to make the amount of money that you need to make in order to live, to spend the time that is required to make these kinds of things.
Yes.
And so just think that there's a lot of material conditions that conspire to make it so that though it seems like there is a demand for this kind of thing from a subset of internet audiences, there's just a limited amount that could possibly be made.
Yep.
Should there be more? Probably.
And the grant model, this is early days back in PBS time, but like the idea that like we have a grant money to make sure that educational, informative content continues to exist, whether it makes money or not, that is perhaps one of a handful of ways that to make this stuff. And I don't know that it does still happen, but I don't know that it's prominent right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And like, I don't know, I would be surprised. I haven't talked to or worked with the PBS folks in quite a while. And in fact, a lot of the people who I worked with when Idea Channel was being made, I think are no longer there.
Sure.
But like, I would guess that you could not make Idea Channel today. I think even though we were, we weren't like, Obama is great. Like we weren't making direct political commentary.
Right.
I think many of the things that we spoke about were at the time seen as only implicitly political, where now they would be considered explicitly political.
Oh, that's very interesting.
That like the content has remained the same, but I think that just the practice of searching for deeper meaning within popular culture, using the set of tools that we used, would now be seen as far too political to be made by PBS. Just would be considered too risky.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Too risky by PBS's standards, but certainly not too risky for audiences or YouTube or anything.
Yeah, that's
because it exists. It currently exists.
Yeah. Again, I'm putting words in their mouth. You know what I mean?
That's a very fascinating thing. Yeah.
That's speculation, but I don't think it could. I don't think it could be made today under the granting model that it was made back then. Again, massive speculation.
Quite interesting. We do need to take a break, but before we go to break, PBS Channel wrapped up. Did it sort of run its course? Did the money kind of wrap up there? What was the end point there for the project?
I mean, it was all kinds of things. We made for over 5 years. I think we made 400 videos.
Wow.
That's a lot of videos. We published 45 videos a year. 45 scripted videos a year. Yeah. The show was also designed in 2012 for a 2012 internet. And in 2016, in 2017, the internet was different for all kinds of reasons. I'm sure that your audience can figure out. And so, it was time for it to end.
Understood. All right. We need to talk about Mike's current work, which I love dearly, and we need to take a break. But before we do, I must quiz him in our court-mandated trivia segment. I will try to stump him with some trivia that's in his wheelhouse, but we'll see if he's ready. How are you feeling about this?
Not confident.
Oh, every guest says not confident. Come on, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. We know that Mike is a fan of technology and audio, and, he and I, as we alluded to at the top of the show, we're of a certain age, which means I presume that you have a fascination with something that I like to call audio cassette tapes. Have you heard of them?
Oh, have I ever?
I thought so. Did you look, you know this. Cassette tapes in the 80s were not just for listening to Whitesnake and Aerosmith. Cassette tapes could also contain computer programs. I knew he would know that. That's not the trivia.
I fixed one once.
Meaning?
A tape storage system for like a enterprise client when I fixed computers. It
Amazing.
was hard. It was hard to do.
Like you fixed the hardware or you like restored data on a tape?
Fix the hardware. Fix the interface system between like a tape storage system and a server rack. It was God. I mean, that was a long time ago, but
I mean, okay, that
because at the time, I don't know if this is still the case, but at the time, it was the most stable long-term storage for data.
Right, because it didn't degrade like disks or whatever. Yeah. All right.
Anyways,
well, we'll talk about this. Here's the trivia. During the earliest days of personal and business computing, while folks in the US here, we were waiting around for floppy disks to become a thing, tech enthusiasts in the UK, Poland, Hungary, and the Netherlands were writing programs and games onto cassettes. Cassettes seem to have been a more popular storage medium in Europe for some reason. Interesting, right? This led to what ingenious pre-web way to send data across distances and communities from one cassette tape to another. I have 3 choices. One of these is real. The other 2 I made up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
A, some radio stations would broadcast computer code so that you could literally record software from the airwaves and run it on your computer. That is choice A. Or is it B, because cassettes had 2 tracks, left and right, stereo, some nerdy local bands would record their music onto one track and encode secret programs on the other. So if you put an album into your microcomputer, it would display Easter eggs like the band's name in ASCII text or like crossword puzzles related to their song lyrics. That is choice B. Or
so it's one or the other.
Or is it C? There's 3 choices.
Okay.
Because cassettes stored information on magnetic tape, leaving magnets near your music library was a bad idea, but some programmers figured out that electromagnetic coils could transmit data within a certain range. This led to hobbyists taking out ads in local newspapers for, quote, transmission nights, where other enthusiasts would bring blank cassettes and lots of beer and tape them to wooden posts within 15 feet of the coil. The process was not perfect, but if you were lucky, you might walk away from a transmission night with a new game or calculator.
Whoa.
That is choice C. Which of these is a real way to transmit computer code from one cassette tape to another?
I love them all, and I want all of them to be true.
Amen.
I am going to say, I'm going to out myself a little bit here as a radio nerd.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you can transmit all kinds of digital information via the radio now, still, today.
Right? I mean, HD radio is 1s and 0s, is it not?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can, like if you have like Citizen Band radio,
okay,
you can actually transmit images. You can send pictures
like
via the radio waves.
Like through spectrogrammetry. Am I saying that right?
It's like you modulate and then demodulate.
Yeah.
There's a special piece of equipment that's involved. I've never actually done it.
Yeah.
But I've read about it in the radio book, which I have right here actually somewhere. You might be able to see it in the background. That red one is that's the antenna book.
Great.
About antenna design, and I think the radio manual is here somewhere. Anyways, I'm gonna say based on that it's A.
Okay. Mike goes with A with some real confidence that it's radio transmissions transmitting computer code. We will find out if he is correct after this important break. You know what time it is. It's that time to thank everyone who supports the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/influencepod, including the $10 or more subscribers per month at the executive producer tier. They include Bowie Barks, Dominic Kerr, William, and Duran. Thank you so much for supporting the show at any level, even the free tier. And now it's time to find out if Mike got that trivia question correct. We're back with Mike Rugnetta, the ideas guy, the creator, producer, writer, host.
Just a guy. I'm just a guy. He's a guy,
but he does cool stuff on the internet. That's what we like to cover here on this show. And before we continue with his current work, he's got a lot of podcasts that I very much enjoy. We got to find out if you got the trivia answer right. It's all about audio cassette tapes, which, guess what? More than just audio, you can put data on those tapes. And some folks in Europe found an ingenious way to transmit that data from one cassette to another. Was it A, radio waves? Stations could just broadcast computer code to your cassette. Mike chose A, very confidently. B, local bands would put Easter eggs, computer code Easter eggs on their singles and EPs and albums.
I think that's the best one. That's the one that I want to be.
You want it to be true.
Yeah.
There's no reason it couldn't be true.
Couldn't, yeah.
Or C, that groups of nerds would get together and blast magnets at tapes and kind of drink beer and walk away with cool new computer programs. Bonfire shareware, perhaps we call that.
That's good.
I always give guests a chance to change their answer if they have reconsidered during the break. Where are you here?
I'm gonna stick with A.
He sticks. Well, I am pleased to inform you that basic code, the Esperanto of computer languages, was an attempt to unify cassette data storage language. And once Europeans once they agreed on the way in which we could transmit, then the bits and bytes could be transmitted over the radio, and local stations would just say, and this would go, so let me read you this. This would go for hours. In 1979, the Dutch broadcaster NOS began transmitting computer programs by radio. Because programs and data were stored as audio on compact cassettes, it was possible to record such a broadcast on tape and load it into a computer later. However, because of the problems mentioned earlier in the Wikipedia article about language mismatches, the program also had to be adapted for a variety of popular computer broadcast multiple times. So they would basically say, all right, for the next 3 hours, we're broadcasting in this language. And then for the next 3 hours, we're broadcasting in this language. So you'd have to leave your your radio and your tape running. And I assume it would just be
yeah.
And then hopefully if you had the right language at the right time and you got all of the code, you would then take that and then put it in your computer and
I bet it
Dungeons
sounded rad.
I bet
it sounded so good.
Yeah.
I bet it sounded awful, but in a way that I would enjoy.
Yes.
Surely there's got to be a recording of this somewhere.
I need, you know what? Hey, this is an audio program. I should have found it and downloaded it. Man, oh man. Speaking of which, sorry to promote my own show, but have you heard of the most mysterious song on the internet?
I don't think so.
Briefly, a German band in 1983 recorded a demo, and a local radio station played it in Germany, and a guy recorded it off the radio, and this tape sat in his drawer for 20 years. And then his sister uploaded it to some Canadian website that was like, what's this song? Help us identify the song. And for decades, Reddit and YouTube has been searching for who this band is, and they finally found them in November, and the drummer came on the show, and it's a story
exciting.
that you would enjoy. So anyway,
yeah,
it really reminded me of this trivia. I just made the connection. Anyway, enough about cassette tapes, enough about radio waves. No more YouTube, but you've returned to your first love of audio production and audio design. Yeah. And you have, 600 podcasts now. What's going on?
Yes, I have the nationally mandated white guy number of podcasts.
Yes.
I'm required by law to have at least 7 or 8.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm fulfilling my quota.
Yep.
There are 4,
mm-hmm.
I would say, that I work on. There are 3 that I think about, or work directly on every week.
Mm-hmm.
So I make Rip Corp,
mm-hmm.
which is a show that is hosted by Ingrid Burrington, that is kind of a business history podcast. It is nominally, each episode takes as its focus a company that has gone out of business,
mm-hmm.
And to describe how and why that company has gone out of business, and to make it kind of a illustration of larger financial concepts that just impact the world in many different ways. So it's
mm-hmm.
why did Claire's go out of business? why did the Wing go out of business? If you're not in New York, you might not know what that is. It's like a women's only co-working space.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
Really interesting story. We're working on one right now that's not really about like a particular company, but it's about how and why it is the financial sector looks the way that it does after 2008.
Yeah.
So it's basically a description of like, how did the recession happen and why is it probably going to happen again?
Right.
And wow, it turns out a lot of the same people are involved. Huh.
I just was talking about this with an activist here on the show. I'm like, Occupy Wall Street, they were out in the street every fucking day and it was covered wall to wall and the whole world was like, yeah, we got to fix this. And then literally nothing
happened. Thank you, Obama. Good job. Nice work. That's all I got to say.
If I may make a recommendation to listeners, I particularly loved the Sierra Online episode of Ripcorp.
Yeah, with Lane. Yeah, really, really love that one.
Love that one because I'm grew up with those games and I knew a little bit of the history, but not the whole thing. And it was a great deep dive into a really cool, innovative company that then got co-opted by shady business people. And
and like Lane is like. They are like the foremost experts on the business history of Sierra specifically. And it's just incredible to hear them just describe in detail.
For sure.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I love it.
And the host is Ingrid, you said?
Yeah, Ingrid Burrington.
Yeah, she's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Ripcorp. I make a sound studies podcast called Reasonably Sound, which I have been making since 2014. That is an episode where we just talk about sounds. Each episode is a focus on usually something hyper specific, like you mentioned at the top of the show, like where does clapping come from? Why do we clap? And then its companion episode, why do we boo? Why do people boo when they're mad about something? The most recent one is about scam and spam phone calls and text messages. So like, we're getting better about it now. It's slowly getting better. And that is predicted in the episode, which came out, I think, either last year or the year before. It's been a while.
It's about, for reference, this show publishes very infrequently.
Very infrequently. Yeah. Once a year at most.
Really? Is it that? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm working on one right now and have been for a long time about ShotSpotter, which is a piece of technology that is purchased by police forces, police precincts around the country to detect and triangulate the location of gunfire in cities. It is famously expensive and famously ineffective. It is so much money and it does not work.
Cool.
And yet, as was the case with the one about spam and scam phone calls, it's like I pick stuff and then news starts to happen about those things. And so I just wait. For things to sort of like, and yeah, it's also, I love making it. I really, really love making it. And I want to resist turning it into something that I hate.
Yes.
Because there's a pressure around putting out X number of them. So it just comes out when it comes out.
Process wise, are you just in the shower being like, wait a minute, what's up with clapping? Or are you reading an article, or does someone, like, where do the ideas come from? I assume they come from all over.
Yeah, I've got on my phone, I have an app where I just keep all of my ideas.
Yep.
And it's just, whenever something strikes, whenever I'm like, I wonder, it just goes in the list. And then when it's time for me to make a new whatever, whichever thing it is that I'm making, I just go to the list and I'm like, I wonder which one, like, what will I do? Or there's an idea that I have that I just cannot get out of my head.
Yeah.
And so it's obvious that that's going to be the next one.
Totally.
But like, I could, if I were working on Reasonably Sound every day, I could make one right after the other.
Sure.
And not run out of ideas ever.
Do you ever have an idea that you love and you're like, I gotta figure it out, and then you do the research and it's like, yeah, we have no fucking idea where clapping comes from?
Hasn't happened yet, but like there are definitely things, ideas that I have where I'm like, oh, it would be really good to do like blah, blah, blah. And then I sit down to write it and research it. And I'm like, okay, this is not interesting. This is just
right,
like,
okay, right.
It's like I can't talk about this for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just, like there's nothing really here.
That makes sense. Okay. And then there's more. Fun City.
Yeah, so for about the last 5 years, I've been working with a group of friends. There's 5 of us. We make a ongoing TTRPG AP pod where we play a tabletop role-playing game together into microphones.
AP, actual play, means they're really playing the game, yeah.
Yeah, and we play a game called Shadowrun, which is a cyberpunk setting and system set in the far future. The show takes place in the year 2102 in New York City.
Is that IP the same as the video game? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so they are connected. Okay.
Yeah, it's the tabletop role playing game came first.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's old. It's from the 80s, and it is a combination cyberpunk fantasy setting. So it takes place in the future, but there's magic and there's orcs and elves and trolls and stuff like that. We've been playing the same story ongoing for the last 5 years, and the team is like almost at the end.
Wow.
Like they're about to. It's a neo-noir style story. There's a big conspiracy between the police and the tech companies and the healthcare providers in New York City in the future, and they're trying to figure out why this is happening and if they can stop it.
Yep,
is the sort of quick thing.
I have not heard the show yet. But you're the GM, is that right?
So we have a unique structure, which is I'm the GM, but there's Taylor Moore, who folks might know from. He currently is the producer of Worlds Beyond Number, a Brennan Lee Mulligan show. He's the producer and the sound designer and composer for that. Taylor plays all the bad guys. So like I'm the universe until someone needs to antagonize the players.
Okay.
And then that's Taylor.
You're not dice rolling for the enemies. He's doing that. That's cool. That's fun.
Yeah. I dice roll for the NPCs that are there to help.
Yeah.
But if anybody's going to cause the team trouble, that's their Taylor.
That's a fun
and
structure.
We play with that a little bit, right? Because it's like Taylor is supposed to be the bad guys, but sometimes Taylor plays someone that seems genuinely friendly. So you're like, wait a minute, what's what's going on here?
It gives your players, it gives the party some stuff to chew on there.
Yeah.
I've not having heard it yet. Format wise, are you guys just chilling and are you your real selves, or is it like hardcore role play? Everyone only speaks as their characters type thing.
Oh, it's us and characters flipping back and forth.
Okay.
It's casual. There's a lot of table talk. The show is very, very heavily edited. It is. I fully score it and sound design it.
I saw that. Yeah.
Music written by a friend of mine, Sam Tyndall, who has his band is called Cuneiform. They're an industrial band. He wrote us the perfect music for a science fiction cyberpunk show. But yeah, we try to. If I can get episodes around an hour, that's where I'm aiming for. Like we don't release 3-hour long episodes.
Right.
I do not have the time to produce them.
Right.
And as a fan, I have a hard time. It just takes me a while to get through a 3-hour episode.
But how often are you publishing this?
So the show is nominally once a month. But again, like we haven't really talked about this yet, but like none of these things are my job.
Yeah, that was my next question.
So I get to the show when I can, and I try really hard for once a month, but it's tough.
Yeah.
It used to be every other week, and I would love to get back to every other week. It's just, life is life.
You make all these shows, you make all this content, you have this big resume as a content creator, and yet currently today in 2025, you don't make your living from any of this work.
No,
so,
I make some money from these things.
Yeah,
some, but it is by far not my living.
So what do you do all day, man?
So before I get to that, the one remaining one is I make a podcast about the internet called Never Post.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm sorry.
That comes out every other week, and I make that with a group of folks that I've been working with for about a year. And that one is a ton of fun. It's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. The only reason that one can come out every other week is that it's like the people I work with are just all stars. They're incredible, like audio producers, reporters, thinkers. They are just like,
This is like Radio for internet culture.
I'll take it.
Is that
I'll take it.
Okay. Because
someone
I was
someone
listening.
once said, This American Life for the Terminally Online, which similarly I will take.
That's
I'll
also
take it.
right, because I was not familiar with it before I was getting ready for the show, and I was listening. I'm like, okay, this is probably just a chat show roundtable of people talking about stuff, and I was like, oh no, this is all produced, this is all journalistic, and I was like, oh my god, this is a fuck ton of work.
Yeah, so it's like fully scored, sound designed. We work with the senior producer of the show, Hans Buetow. We got him from the New York Times. He left the New York. We're old friends. We went to college together. But he was leaving his role at the New York Times, and he was like, "I'm looking for work. Like, what should I do?" And I was like, Hans, do you want to make a show together?
Yeah.
And the executive producer, Jason Oberholzer, is someone who I work with. He runs the production company that is my day job.
Okay.
We'll talk about in a sec.
Yep.
So everybody is just a professional audio producer, and we're all just really interested in why the internet is the way that it is, and why the world is the way that it is, because the internet is the way that it is.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So it's a lot of fun. We've been doing it for about a year, and I think we're going to be able to keep doing it for a little while longer.
Mm-hmm. So day job is at a production company or
client work? Yeah,
client work. Okay.
Yeah, I make my day job is, like I said at the top of the show, the easiest way to describe it is I make podcasts for tech companies.
Right.
My name is not on any of them. If you search me, they will not show up.
Oh, interesting. It's totally
I'm not on camera. I'm not on microphone.
But you're not even credited as a producer? Because it's all white labeled for the company.
I mean, our production, I think our production company is credited in some of them, but like they're not. I'm going to say this with the utmost love to my clients and everybody who I work with. Matt, the audience of your show, they're not for them.
No, of course.
These shows are not for, it's for a very particular audience. It's for a very specific group of people.
FinTech optimization podcast or whatever, right?
I mean, or like just people who are really interested in like very narrow technical concepts or technological innovations.
Yeah, that's great.
It's not stuff that you'll stumble upon. It's stuff that like if it's something that is germane to the work that you do every day, you probably listen to it, or you might listen to it. And if it's not, there's no reason for you to.
No, it's a trade publication.
I think that's a pretty close approximation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I like doing them. A lot of them are really good technical challenges. Like when I finished Idea Channel, I had been on camera for a long time. I did a couple crash courses.
Yeah.
I was on camera for those. I was like, I know how to be on a show. I don't really know how to make a show. And so I want to learn how to make a show. I want to learn how to run a show.
Oh, so you were not producing and editing during those days very much?
No.
Yeah.
No. For Idea Channel, I wrote, researched, and hosted.
Yes. Okay.
For Crash Course, I even co-writing is a stretch. I punched up some scripts just to make sure that they sounded like me when they were coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that was just hosting.
Okay.
Fun, huge, great. I loved making those. Those were so much fun.
You must still, because Crash Course is so much like, oh, I'm Googling a topic and I'm finding it on Crash Course and I'm watching it 8 years later. Like, do you still get messages and response to Crash Course videos?
Now it is, if someone recognizes me in public, which happens very rarely, but if someone does, the chances that it is for Crash Course is the highest at this point.
Very interesting. For anyone not familiar, it is John and Hank Green's educational channel. Is that accurate? Okay.
I think that's accurate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I hosted two. I hosted World Mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Theater and Dramaturgy, or Theater History. Yeah. what was I saying? Oh yeah, I wanted to figure out how to run a show.
Yep.
And so I did. That's like that, and now that's what I do. Like I help companies develop shows, figure out if they're going to be good based upon what it is that they want to accomplish. Which it's corporate, so the things that they want to accomplish are pretty narrow, and honestly, like easier than if you're making something that's like a little artful. Like you generally know what your KPIs are. You know exactly who your audience is.
It's not to get too shop talky, but like I do similar work, and it's like I come from the media world where it's like, if we don't have 10,000 views, we can't sell ads or whatever. And it's like, no, this lady just needs to reach 500 CEOs and sell 10 books and we're good. It's
it's got to be easy to watch and clear.
Right.
And like, I can help them with that.
Yeah.
And a couple of them are things where it's like the way that we make them, I won't get bogged down in details, but like the way that the post-production system works, which is what I manage, was actually like a bit of a challenge to put together. And our workflows do some things that are sort of collaboratively and technologically pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And so just as someone who, the number one thing I always want to do, like I just want to make things with people, want to collaborate with folks and like have made something together. Kind of doesn't even really matter at the end what it is, as long as it's not making the world worse. And so like, it's fun to be able to, it's fun to put together these systems and then iterate on them and improve them and work with fun people to, make something.
Yep. In the time we have left, and in the spirit of not making the world worse, how has the internet changed? You alluded to it a bunch during the conversation, but like you said, the online creation landscape from the beginning of your career to now is so radically different. In some ways, more exciting and innovative than ever, and in other ways, so distressing. I don't know. Any high level thoughts on that evolution?
Yeah, geez.
It's a big question.
Yeah, we should have started with this one.
Like you said, PBS Idea Channel can't exist today, but that was more about, grant money and the funding,
like the funding
of it.
model.
Yeah.
It would just be tough. I think again,
Sure.
Speculating about that.
And even this idea that like you're making many high quality shows with large loyal audiences, and yet you do not make a living from any of that work. And that is so kind of sucks, honestly. You know what I mean?
It would be nice if I did. But
like we don't have the economic models in place to facilitate that work.
But I'm also not deluding myself in the fact that I'm making things that are for a broad audience.
Right.
Like I'm not putting together my internet show with my pals that's like a news segment, a field recording interstitial, a segment about why blocking people feels good, another field recording interstitial, and then like, an interview with a linguist about, why people talk the way they do in influencer videos.
Right.
Like, and expecting that 100,000 people are going to listen.
Right.
It's, like I don't feel a sense of entitlement to a huge audience. And I think to a certain degree, again, like it's not about me. Like I'm trying to deprioritize myself in a lot of ways. Like I don't want one. I don't want a huge audience. I would rather not have that pressure. Like I did it with Idea Channel and, it kind of fucked up my brain a little bit, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Like I remember the point at which it was like 330,000 subscribers was when Idea Channel was like normal. And we eventually got to like around 800,000. And that was too much. It was too many people paying attention to what I was doing. And it's not the reason the show ended, but like, when we decided to end it for other reasons, being able to leave that amount of attention behind was really nice. I think I love the internet. I love the internet. I hate 90% of what's on it. I think that there is so much potential for community building, collective action, just like group organization, finding like-minded people, working with those people to make the world better. It's just the problem is that doing that is like walking through a carnival to the booth where you do your taxes. There's just so much to stop you along the way that's flashing and wants your attention and wants your money and wants to do things to you and not with you.
Right.
And so it's really, really hard to keep that focus. And it's only getting harder and harder and harder as more territory of the internet is enclosed by big companies who fundamentally do not care about you.
Right.
They only care about you insofar as they have captured your attention and can use
data.
that attention to make money.
And your attention,
Yeah, data and attention to make money. And so, I think that, and it's exhausting to have to think about that. It's so much less exhausting to just let 300 TikTok videos happen to you over 2.5 hours. Right? Like you don't have to think about that. It's not challenging.
Did you watch some TikTok? No, it happened to me. TikTok,
honestly, that's
TikTok
what
watched
it is.
Me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. And so it's like, it's so hard to be an active participant in digital spaces at the moment because every single force on it is pushing you towards being passive. Because when you're passive, you are the most profitable.
Yeah.
That's not fun to tell people over and over again. And I think that, I think we're starting to see a shift now.
Yes.
Like very, very recently.
Yes.
But up until now, I think there's this widespread idea that it's like, if you can make the right kind of thing and you can follow the whims of the almighty algorithm, there's an audience out there for you.
Right.
And once you find that, you make your thing, you find your audience, there's money in it for you. And it's now, or up until now, it was, like for me, when I was a kid, it was being in a band. You practice every afternoon. You go and play shows locally. An A&R person will see you. You'll get a record deal, and then you'll make millions of dollars. It's weird that like we went from that obviously predatory and exploitative relationship that everybody was after. We learned throughout the 2000s that it was predatory and exploitative. We memory hold that, and now we're doing the same thing except for platforms in the algorithm.
Because it was a wolf in sheep's clothing, because the platforms came in and be like, you don't need a record label. You can be famous from your bedroom and do it your own way. And you sort of could to an extent until
yes,
the
I think,
algorithms.
I would really emphasize the sorta could until. And I think, and so like that residual belief is sort of, I think, poisonous.
Yeah.
And I think it leads people towards thinking that what the internet is for content creation and for sharing, and not a large scale sense of community building and communicating, which is just so much more powerful, so much more important, and leaves behind a bunch of the stuff that the platforms tell you that you should be using their technology for,
Right.
but which is just not, you're never going to realize the thing that they're promising for you.
Right.
And I get, amongst the emails that I get, again, we've talked about this a lot. It's like when people email you, when people reach out, it's like, I'm not getting dozens of these a day. Like I really am, like, I'm very much just some guy, but like sometimes I get contact from people who have listened to my things or watched the shows, and they're like, how do I do this? How do I do what you did? And the answer is not only can you not, you shouldn't. You should not. Do not try. Like, if you want to make something and you want an audience, go and find the people who live in your town and go community theater. Go and do community theater. Do like a noise show in a college basement. Like, please, I'm begging you, do not make YouTube videos. I'm serious. Like, I do it I make content every day, like for big companies, and that's the only space where you're going to make money.
Are you
That's
saying?
a good.
I was going to say
That's maybe a good bracket.
Do not make YouTube videos if your goal is to make money, or do
Correct.
not make YouTube videos because your ideas don't belong on YouTube. I know you're not saying that.
I mean, yeah. I think you're catching me at a particularly frustrated moment for a number of reasons. The political state of the United States, chief amongst them. I feel different ways, different days.
Yeah.
Platforms are not your friend.
No.
They capture you. They capture your audience. You are there to be monetized. Your presence on those platforms help to monetize the presence of other people. And you could think about whether or not that is a fundamentally ethical relationship to ask someone to opt into.
Right.
That being said, right, the internet is a powerful tool for building community and communicating, and that's important right now. So, I can't say don't use YouTube to share important and what you think are impactful ideas, unless you're a Nazi, in which case just like fuck off and don't make anything anywhere. But like, be realistic about the fact that it's going to be really hard to make a living.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it to make a living. I cannot recommend it.
No.
And also be aware that it's like, if you put all your eggs in that basket, it's going to be hard to get them out of that basket.
So I like to pick at the difference between the internet, which was built to be open, the web, which was built to be open and interoperable, versus platforms. And I think average users confuse Facebook and YouTube with the internet. And again, sorry to talk about previous episodes, but have you seen Free Our Feeds?
No.
Nonprofit coalition of a lot of very smart tech people who are raising money to invest in federated, decentralized social media. And I had Mallory Nodal on, who was just brilliant, and she was explaining to me that like we can have social media, but it doesn't have to be for profit. It doesn't have to be owned by billionaires. And exactly what you're saying of like, what if you're publishing on a platform and that platform stops having value or goes sideways? What if you could just port it and your community and your content and the conversations to another platform? Well, ActivityPub and aTeNtIoN allows this to happen. We just need to rebuild social media from the ground up. And she mentioned switching costs, which is like, it's really fucking hard when all your content, all your contacts, all your friends, all your family are on one platform. It's almost impossible for the average user to switch over to some new thing that they don't understand. But we sort of have to do that now. And she's saying the same thing you are, of like, we have arrived at a moment where people are really starting to take that seriously and really putting money where their ideas are in real ways. Fingers crossed. I
mean, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. And I think that, Mike Masnick, who's on the board at Blue Sky, wrote a thing about like how it is that Blue Sky and aTeNtIoN is sort of like, I think he called it billionaire proof, or billionaire resistant, enshittification resistant,
right?
Not enshittification proof,
right?
But resistant.
I'll take it.
And yeah, I agree. Like, it's a big fingers crossed about that. But like, I do still feel both because of the tech moment that we're in, and especially the political moment that we're in, that we need to leave behind the idea of building an audience. We have to abandon the idea of building audience. We have to really seize on the idea of building community where you live. And that can involve the internet. I'm not saying that those two things are apart from one another. And in fact, it's probably necessary to use the internet to do that. But I think that the idea of building audience has really invaded so much of how people think about the world. And we gotta stop. We gotta get rid of it. It's poison. It's really poisonous.
I'm gonna end it there, but before we go, if people want to follow your work and subscribe to your shows, where do they go?
Okay. You can find, I'm Mike Rugnetta most places, MikeRugnetta on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on YouTube, where I also upload a video every 2 or 3 years or something. You can find Neverpost at neverpo.st, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Fun City is at funcity.ventures, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Ripcorp is at ripcorp.biz, and you guessed it, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm around.
He's around. All those links will be in the doobly-doo, and if you are interested in getting some smoking hot content every couple years, you can subscribe to Mike. Thank you for being my guest. It's great to catch up with you.
Matt, it was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I hope it wasn't too polemic at the end there.
That's why you're here. That's why I brought you on. Always good to chat with Mike, and love his take on audience building versus community building. It's a really important distinction that I don't think we talk about enough in modern internet culture. And, maybe we are pushing back. Maybe we are making strides against that. Particularly if you're a listener of this show, you know that I am always raging against passive internet use. I think about that so often and talk about it so often that even my children, my daughter, who just turned 12 and got a telephone for the first time, we talk about that a lot with regard to her sort of phone hygiene. She does not have access to social media, but I will be caught looking at my phone, checking messages or scrolling feeds, and she will pass by me and say, "Daddy, is that intentional use or is that passive use?" And she got me. It's important, and it's a hearts and minds battle that hopefully we can change through intentional, slow content, rich content, community-driven content. And as you heard, Mike's doing it out of the passion for this type of work, because he ain't making dollars. All right? You got to make that some other way. The quality and the rigor comes from having your heart in it and loving that work so much. So kudos to him. I'm glad we still get to benefit from his ideas. And if you enjoyed the show, head on over to patreon.com/influencepod to subscribe for free. You get a newsletter version. You can get it algorithm free in your inbox and see what's popping, ask questions of future guests. And thank you for listening. Thanks for spending time with me and my guests every single week. And I implore you to please, you gotta be kind and rewind your podcasts after listening. And I will talk at you in 1 week's time.